The winning blueprint presents.
In the lab room.
Well. Look what we have here. We knew it was coming. It was only a matter of time before these replacement officials decided a ball game. We knew it was going to happen. Someone was going to get jerked around and lose a football game behind these replacement refs. Well, if you stuck around last night long enough to watch the conclusion of Monday Night Football, you were in for a treat. You got to see the Green Bay Packers get robbed of a football game, get robbed of a win. And that's where we begin today. Welcome. You are in the lab room. I'm your host, Lou. Thank you for joining me on this wonderful Tuesday afternoon. Wonderful for me, but not wonderful if you're a Green Bay Packers fan today. Probably not wonderful for me either because I lost the game. But there is a silver lining here. Because of that game, I am now allowing that to give credence to the notion that my record is in the toilets right now because of these replacement refs. You've been watching games around the league. You know these replacement officials have been horrendous. And these calls, and not all of them have decided games like the one last night did. However, an accumulation of bad calls throughout the course of the game can cause a team a game. And it's happened throughout this season already. I've seen teams lose games because of bad officiating. But again, you never want to blame your loss on the officials. You want to man up and say, hey, we didn't get it done. We had opportunities to win, and the officials didn't decide the game. But in your head, in your mind, you're saying, these damn officials took this game away from us and made it that much harder for us to get a W today. And so I feel the same way. I'm not going to just flat out blame these officials for my downfall right now. But in the back of my mind, I am saying, hey, I think I would have had another 4 or 5 wins on my total instead of losses had the real officials been around to call these games. There's been a lot of bad pass interference calls. And we all know, in the National Football League, the great equalizer, the one penalty that can change the complexion of a drive, and not only a drive, but a game, is pass interference. Because that's the only penalty in the whole game of football that can span 0 to 100 yards. All right, there's no other penalty that carries that kind of weight. Every other penalty has a fixed amount of yardage that is attached to it, whether it's 5, 10, or 15. Pass interference is the only one that can net you, 38 yards on one play or 54 yards on one particular play. In the blink of an eye, it can be first and 37 or third and 92, and you can get a first down off of a pass interference. And there's other penalties you can get a first down off of and have a lot of yards to get, but none of them puts you in a position to score immediately like a pass interference can. And so there's been a lot of egregious pass interference calls by these replacement officials. I don't think they really know when and when not to throw that flag for pass interference. And so they've been really skittish, inconsistent on the pass interference flag in particular. And it's caused for a lot of concern in a lot of ball games. I know a lot of teams feel like we probably would have won had we gotten the calls we should have got. And we probably would have won had they not called pass interference on a few plays that I don't think there was pass interference on. You watched last night and you saw there were some terrible pass interference calls last night. Some missed, some called that you just said, what are you looking at? I mean, how are you supposed to play defense if that's pass interference? And so Let's get into the game, though. Let's get into the game and the meat and potatoes of what actually occurred last night on the field in Seattle at CenturyLink Field between the Green Bay Packers and the Seattle Seahawks. All right, immediately looking at the score, looking at the final score, you know this was a defensive struggle. I don't need to tell you that. I'm going to tell you anyway, though. This was a defensive struggle. All right, two teams that this year are playing some out-of-this-world defense. I already told you in the preview for this game that these Seattle Seahawks are quietly putting together one of the better defenses in all of the National Football League. They're playing solid defense. And the reason they can do that is because they do the two things you need to do on defense consistently to stop teams from putting points on the board. And that's get after the quarterback, which they do with their front four, and stop teams in the secondary. They have, I'm going to go out on a limb and say they have the best secondary in all of football. I mean, how many teams can boast they have two corners over 6'2" that can lock you down, play sound defense, play the ball, make plays on the football, and then behind them have two more safeties that are Pro Bowl safeties? How many teams can say that? I can tell you, other than the Seattle Seahawks, zero. No one else can say that. 6'2" corners don't grow on trees. 6'2" corners aren't normally as athletic as these two corners are for the Seattle Seahawks. 6'2" corners don't make plays on the football normally. They do all of the above and more. They tackle. They do everything soundly. And this is why the Seattle Seahawks are a dominant defense. They get teams off the field on third down. They get after your quarterback, force you into errant throws. This secondary does not make mistakes. They play sound in their technique. They're there around the football. They're there to make plays. If you catch the football for a 7-yard gain, you get tackled where that 7 yards has been accomplished and achieved. You don't get another yard after you catch that football. Those safeties are looming around and make big hits, make big plays on the football. Everybody's where they're supposed to be, when they're supposed to be. They're doing what they're supposed to do when they get there. This Seattle Seahawks defense is at another level right now. And I love watching them fly around. I can't lie. That was an entertaining game. Normally you don't get entertaining football out of 12 to 14, but that was an entertaining football game. Now, the Packers got off to a morbid start. And the reason? They could not protect Aaron Rodgers. In the preview, I talked about the fact that Aaron Rodgers was not being protected well at all early in this season. I thought the 49ers got after him. It kind of made him a little disheveled back there in the pocket, got him off of his spots that he wanted to stay on and throw the football, got him out of the pocket, made him have to run around and find targets on the run. And normally, Aaron Rodgers is adept at that. Normally, he can do that with no problem. Throw on the run, throw across his body, and make accurate, pinpoint accurate throws at that. Not right now. Teams are playing sticky coverage against these receivers. To start the season out, there was no Greg Jennings, so it was a lot easier to cover these receivers. They weren't making plays. As we know, Jeremichael Finley loses concentration every now and again. He has a lot of opportunities to make plays, but he just has lapses in concentration, drops the football, and so you get times where drives could probably be extended, and they're not because they don't make plays on the football. It's mainly Jeremichael Finley. But Aaron Rodgers was being chased off of his spot in the pocket, having to run, and he wasn't getting time to set his feet and make good, solid throws. This continued in week 2 against the Bears. They sacked him about 5 or 6 times, got after him, made him uncomfortable in the pocket, made him run around and look for receivers to throw the football to. And it continued again in week 3 against these Seattle Seahawks. Except this time, he didn't get away. He tried to run around, tried to make things happen, but that coverage was so sticky in the secondary, there was nowhere to go with the football. And so a lot of times, I thought he should have thrown the football away. He was eating sacks. And they sacked him 8 times in the first half. I mean, you look at Chris Clemens, he had 4 sacks, all in the second quarter. You look at Bruce Irvin, their first-round selection out of West Virginia for the Seattle Seahawks. He had 2 sacks on just about back-to-back plays, and he had about 3 sacks in the first half. They were dominating this Packers offensive line, especially these tackles. Marshall Newhouse and Brian Bulaga were getting dominated by the defensive ends of the Seattle Seahawks. They were no match for these ends. They were beating them around the corner. They were bull rushing them, pushing them around, tossing them out of the way. I mean, Bruce Irving looked like Reggie White against Brian Bulaga. He was literally taking him with one arm, his inside arm at that, and just destroying him, then disregarding him and sacking Aaron Rodgers. It was a sight to see. They were putting immense pressure on Aaron Rodgers. He couldn't do anything with the football. That offense was stagnant, and they had 0 points to show for any effort that they put forth in that first half because that Seahawks defense was so dominant. Now, by that same token, it was tough on this Seattle Seahawks offense as well. This Packers defense was relentless. They were coming after young Russell Wilson and only his third start in the National Football League. But you knew that the Seattle Seahawks were going to come in with the game plan of handing the football to beast mode, Marshawn Lynch, get him involved early and often, take that pressure off of Wilson, and allow Wilson to go play action fake. But the Packers had other ideas. They came into this game knowing the intentions of the Seahawks was going to be to run the football. And so they came in and they stacked against the run, and they stopped the run pretty soundly. I mean, Marshawn Lynch is a very powerful runner, and the pile is going to move forward when he gets in there because he's great at contorting his body and using his leg drive to continue to push the pile forward. And so he's going to fall forward for 2 or 3 or 4 yards. But there was no explosive runs. There were no cutback runs and breaking tackles. No, they were bottling him up, coming with friends, coming with company, making sure they came to the party with 2 or 3 members of that defense, corralling him, stopping him for short gains, making Russell Wilson have to beat them on third downs. And he wasn't able to do so. Now, he was able to have success on one drive in the first half where he was able to hook up with Golden Tate on play action fake down the middle of the field, for about a nice 40-yard touchdown pass. It was a thing of beauty. They set that up beautifully, running the football in the short passing game. And then finally, when they were able to lull the Packers to sleep, they ran a nice combination route of the tight end running across the field to take Charles Woodson away, and one-on-one coverage with Golden Tate and Tramon Williams. And he turned Tramon Williams around on that double move. He went out like he was going to run a fly and cut it in on a nice skinny post. Easy pass for Wilson to make. He dropped it in there beautifully, touchdown, and the Seahawks go up 7-0. Now, those were the only points of the first half. I mean, they were struggling to get points on the board. This was a defensive struggle. These teams were not able to move the ball on one another, and the defenses were a lot to blame for that. These defenses were coming out. They were aggressive. They were getting after the quarterback. They were stopping the run and making sure that on third down you were staring at 3rd and long, and you were going to have to make sure you had to pass to pick up the first down. And these teams weren't able to do that because this pass rush for both teams was relentless in getting after the quarterback, making it hard for them to stay in the pocket and go through their progressions and reads and find the open man. They didn't have a lot of time. If your first read wasn't open, you had to get out of there. These teams were coming. They were getting pressure, and they were hot and heavy on their pressure. And so this first half was a defensive struggle, but it was fun to watch. It was fun to see these teams break down with their offensive lines. It's good to know that your team isn't the only one with offensive line issues. There are a lot of teams around the league that have problems protecting their quarterbacks. So if you have a team that can't protect their quarterback, don't feel bad. It shouldn't make you feel any better because your team still can't get your quarterback protected. You know, just because the Packers have issues protecting their quarterback doesn't mean you're going to solve your issues. Your issues still exist. You should just feel less terrible about your situation because you're not the only one going through it. There are other teams around the league that can't protect their quarterback, i.e. the Bears, i.e. the Packers. And so, look, this first half was full of punts, full of 3-and-outs, a lot of penalties as well. This game was littered with penalties, and it made sense that it was because this is the same crew that, for those of you who did not watch the Washington Redskins take on the St. Louis Rams in Week 2, this was the same crew that officiated that game, and that game got severely out of control. They had no control over that football game. They could not keep the players on the field from getting into skirmishes and having extracurricular activity happen after the whistle. And so I think that this officiating crew made a point to come out and make sure that this wasn't going to happen for a second consecutive week. And so they were throwing flags on everything. If anything looked and resembled anything like contact. And so essentially they had the Packers and the Seahawks playing flag football, because if you had any contact with a receiver or a quarterback last night, you got a flag. There were some egregious personal foul, roughing the passer penalties, some terrible pass interference calls. I mean, they were just bad calls all over the place. And then when they needed to throw the flag, of course, in true replacement ref fashion, they did not do so. And so they always have it inverse. When they're supposed to throw the flag, they don't. When they're not, they do. And it was no different last night. They had a big impact on the game, as you will find out later if you did not watch the game. However, in the third quarter, the Packers came out of halftime with a strategy which was run the football. Let's go out there, put 2-3 tight ends on the field, hand the ball off to Cedric Benson, and pound them in the run game, make it third and short, third and manageable, and then we'll let Aaron Rodgers hit the checkdowns, what the Seahawks were doing all night. And I think it took the Packers way too long to figure this out, is that they were playing a 3-deep zone. They were playing a 3-deep look. And basically, they were taking their 4 down linemen and getting pressure with those guys, dropping their linebackers back into a 3-deep look, and not giving the Packers anything over the top. You know, the safeties were dropping back in thirds. These linebackers were going under, and they were playing a lot of man-to-man coverage as well. And so they took away a lot of the looks that the Packers like to go to. And they were giving them anything underneath. So if they were willing to take a Cedric Benson dump off for 4 yards, a John Kuhn dump off for 6, they were willing to give them that. They weren't going to give them, however, a 27-yard pass to Greg Jennings or a Jermichael Finley 37-yard catch down the seam. They weren't allowing that to happen. Jordy Nelson was not going to catch a deep post down the middle of the field. But what they were willing to give up was anything underneath. And so the Packers started to take what the defense was giving them, and they started to matriculate the ball down the field. Now, I'm telling you what, if you've watched Packers football over the last 2-3 seasons, Packers drives normally don't take 15 to 17 plays. But that's exactly what was happening against this Seattle Seahawks defense, because there were a lot of Cedric Benson runs, and in between those runs, there were a lot of dump-offs to Cedric Benson, John Kuhn, a lot of hitches to Greg Jennings and Jermichael Finley, a lot of slants, a lot of quick hitting routes for the Packers to get the ball out of Aaron Rodgers' hands quickly so that that rush couldn't get to him, and so that they could get the yards that were there that the Seahawks were willing to give up. And so they started driving the ball down the field, but they could not punch it in the end zone. This Seattle Seahawks defense is a bend but don't break defense. When you finally do get down the field on them, they find ways to not allow you to get in the end zone. And they did this time and time again to the Packers. Their first 2 drives of the third quarter were long drives, long sustaining drives. However, they weren't able to get in the end zone. They had to settle for 2 Mason Crosby field goals, 2 close Mason Crosby field goals at that. And so they cut the deficit from 7-0 to 6-7, and the Seahawks could not do anything on offense in the third quarter. They were stifled by this Packers defense. The momentum, you could see old Uncle Mo was starting to change. He was going from the Seattle Seahawks over to the Green Bay Packers, and the Packers got the ball again to start the fourth quarter and started to march right down the field, and they put together another long sustaining drive that saw them get all the way down there, but had to go for it on a 4th down. They got it and ended up punching the ball into the end zone. The Packers went for 2 after scoring their touchdown to take the lead 12-7. They went for 2 but did not get it. I thought Aaron Rodgers was too quick to make a decision And he had already made it up pre-snap where he was going with the football, but I thought they were spreading them out. He had looks all over the field. I would have loved to have seen him just tuck it and run. I thought it was there for him to do so, and I thought he would have got in easily. But he had already made up his mind. 3-step drop, get it out of my hands. I'm going back shoulder, and it didn't work out. Brandon Browner was all over it, knocked it down, and so the score remained 12-7. And that loomed large in this football game, as you will find out later, that they did not convert that 2-point conversion because the Seattle Seahawks got the football back with a considerable amount of time remaining on the clock, proceeded to drive down the field and get in scoring range. They literally got down to about the Green Bay Packers 7 or so with 2 minutes remaining on the clock, and they had a 4th down and about 3 from the Green Bay Packers 7, and they threw a fade pass. It didn't work, and I think that they had some kind of miscommunication on that route because 2 Seattle Seahawks receivers were in the same vicinity. You normally don't see that, especially for the type of route that Russell Wilson was trying to throw to Sidney Rice. I don't think Golden Tate was supposed to be over there. Nonetheless, it did not work. It was not completed. They had a turnover on downs. So the Packers took over on their own 7-yard line. It backs to the end zone. And on the first play, they tried a running play to Cedric Benson. And Brandon Browner comes knifing in out of nowhere, 5 yards into the backfield. It makes Cedric Benson stumble. He fumbles the football as Earl Thomas comes out of nowhere and reaches in and rips it out. And luckily for the Packers, the veteran center Jeff Saturday was around and alert, pounces on the football. But now the Packers are now on their own 2-yard line. And so at this point now you're just looking to get space to punt the football. They run the ball 2 more times. The Seahawks have timeouts. They use them. And so the Packers punt the football, but the Seahawks have prime position and enough time to go back down and get back into scoring range. And that's what they did. Russell Wilson throws a laser to Sidney Rice, gets them down to around the 20-yard line, completes another pass, gets them, that pass to Sidney Rice gets them at about the 27 or so, gets another completion down to about the, 17 or so. And it sets up our end of the game scenario that just blew the minds of all the viewers watching. And again, you knew that this was going to happen sooner or later. You didn't know when, and you were praying that it wasn't going to involve your football team. But you knew it was going to happen sooner or later, that these replacement officials were going to have to make a big call at the end of a football game that was going to decide a winner and a loser. And it happened on the biggest stage there is in the National Football League during the regular season, Monday Night Football, all eyeballs glued to the television. These replacement officials saw a Hail Mary by Russell Wilson thrown into the end zone. There's 6 Packers and about 2 Seahawk receivers. Golden Tate blatantly pushes the Packers corner, Sam Shields, blatantly, pushes him literally 2 yards away from the jump ball that ensues for the Hail Mary. Leaps up, and there's a Packer safety by the name of M.D. Jennings that clearly catches the football. He's got it. He's in the process of pinning it to its chest, and Golden Tate reaches in and tries to get a piece of the football as they go to the ground. He really never had control of the football. M.D. Jennings is cradling the ball to his chest, literally like this, and Golden Tate is just holding on just to say, hey, I got a piece of this. And one official is going, touchdown, and the other official, who probably had the best angle, is going, no, this is an interception, game over. And they start conferring. They start talking. He allows the official that calls it a touchdown to overrule him. They call it a touchdown on the field. And we know once a play that is tough on the field and is going to be tough on replay to overturn is called on the field as a touchdown. Whatever the call on the field is, if there's any doubt as to whether it needs to be overturned or not, 9 times out of 10, they're going to leave it the way it is on the field. And so that being called a touchdown on the field was huge. And mayhem and bedlam essentially took effect on the field. Seattle Seahawks players were everywhere. Pete Carroll ran into the end zone. At this point, you couldn't tell the Seahawks and their faithful, hey, we made a mistake. This isn't the right call. It was an interception. You knew they weren't going to have the balls to do that, because then at that point they knew they were going to have to find a way to get out of Seattle alive. And they weren't prepared to do that. We know these replacement officials, they don't have the gumption, they don't have the balls to make tough calls. And so you knew they were going to take the easiest route out of this game, which was, hey, just give it to the home team. Let's get the hell out of here. And that's what they did. They made a bad call. They compounded it by going to instant replay and saying that it was confirmed, which was a farce. And this should have never happened, because it should have been pass interference on Golden Tate. I mean, it doesn't get any more blatant. And he had the nerve after the game to say there was no pass interference. Are you kidding me? Are you going to watch the film and watch the tape and tell us you didn't, with two arms, give Sam Shields a two-handed thrust, 4 yards in front of the pack of people going up for that jump ball Hail Mary in the end zone? Are you going to sit there and lie to our face and tell us you didn't do that? Give me a break. And this was a joke. And all I could do was laugh. Even though I lost this game, all I could do is laugh, because I knew it was going to happen. I was glad it didn't happen to my team, because I probably wouldn't have a voice today to talk to you, because I would have been screaming at the top of my lungs for the next 2 hours as if someone could hear me. And so I was just glad and thankful it wasn't my team. And all I could do was laugh, because I knew this was going to happen to somebody. And Mike McCarthy, I thought he handled it the right way. He's a good one, because I wouldn't have sent my players back on the field. I wouldn't have sent 11 players out there for the extra point. I would have told the league, go to hell. You want to finish the game, you do it without me. I'm not sending my players back out there. That's a joke. And good for Mike McCarthy. He handled it in a classy demeanor, in a classy way. And he went about it, I thought, the best way he could in the press conference, by telling them right at this front of this press conference, look, I'm not handling any questions about the officials. Don't ask me. If you want to talk about the game, fire away. But anything about the officials, I don't want any part of it, because you know how I feel about it right now. And leave it alone. And I thought that was the best way to go about it, because there was no tippy-toeing. There was no dancing, no sugarcoating. This was a terrible, egregious call. The Packers got hosed. And if you ask me the wrong question, the way that I'm feeling right now and the way that I just expressed how I felt to my team, I'm not going to be able to hold back the words that I want to say. I'm going to get fined, and the league is going to come down on me hard because of what I'm going to say. And he handled that the right way. I thought that the Seahawks, they went about it, I guess, the only way you could. I thought they could have went about it a lot better. They went about it as if everything was the right call and they made a great play. No, this game was robbed from the Packers and given to you. It was like Robin Hood. They stole from the Packers, a rich team in the NFC, and gave to a poor team in the NFC, the Seattle Seahawks, and said, here, you're probably not going to be around when this thing is all said and done. How about we give you a win early on in the season? This was a travesty, a joke, and good thing for everyone around the league that, again, it wasn't your team. So you can look at this and say, man, the Packers got robbed, but you're doing it from afar. If you're a Packers fan today, you have to feel, you're just irate. You feel like the league has it in for you, and you feel like how the Saints felt over the summer, that this league is a joke. They have every resource and every opportunity to make this thing right, and they won't. And you feel like something has to be done, and it needs to be done not today, but yesterday. Problem is, Roger Goodell and his ego is going to continue to be in the way, and they're not going to get something done with these officials anytime soon. And it's a shame, because people are going to watch. The NFL is a product right now that is so hot that people aren't going to stop watching. They're going to continue to watch, and he knows that. And so there's no danger, there's no urgency on his part to get this thing done. I'm still going to have my 21.2 rating on Sunday night when I put, this team against this team, or when I put the Cowboys and the Bears on Monday Night Football next week, I'm still going to have my 19.8 rating, which blows everyone else out of the water. What difference does it make what officials I put out there? You're still going to watch. And so he knows that. And so this isn't going anywhere. So get comfortable. You can complain all you want. You can make the biggest stink that you want. This isn't going away. It isn't going anywhere. Get used to the replacement officials. I know I'm going to have fun with it. I'm going to continue to have a laugh at the expense of these replacement officials, because it's going to continue to be a joke for the rest of the season until they're able to reach some sort of agreement with the real officials. This is going to continue to be a joke all season, and it's more of this to come. Don't think this is the last straw that broke the camel's back. This is the first in the long line of games that these officials are going to decide, and they're going to destroy some teams' dreams and hopes of going to the playoffs this year. Someone's going to miss the playoffs by a game or two and have a chance to look back on their season and say, those damn replacement officials cost us a chance to go to the playoffs. It's coming. More teams are going to be affected negatively by these replacement officials if they already haven't. And so I digress, though. I'm done with that. That was a nice little laugh for me last night. What's not funny, however, is I took another loss at the expense of these replacement officials. I dropped to 7-9 for this week. Inexcusable. I've never had a week in my life of picking football games where I wasn't at least 500. I've never lost 8 games in 1 week prior to this week, and I've never lost 9 games. I mean, I've never been under 500. This was a terrible week, and again, I could blame the officials. I could do a lot of things. I'm not going to do that. However, I'm going to say that I just got to be better, and I expect to be better, and I will be better. I've told you that already, so I'm not going to talk your ear off about how bad I was. All I'm going to do is show you guys better than I can tell you. I'm going to turn this thing around. The lab is going to be on top when it's all said and done. I have no question. I'm like Drew Brees right now. I'm like Drew Brees. I have no doubts in my mind I'm going to turn this thing around. I'm going to be on top when it's all said and done. That's what I do. I'm a winner. That's all I know how to do is win, and I'm going to show you better than I can tell you. And that's going to do it for this episode. That's a touchdown. I'm going to tack on a quick extra point. Right after this episode of In the Lab Room, there will be a special Warpath Warrior episode talking about the Redskins and breaking down that game between the Cincinnati Bengals. So if you would like to see that, stay tuned. The Warpath Warrior will make his presence felt, talk about the Redskins, and then disappear into the Tuesday wins, if you will. And so that'll do it for this episode of In the Lab Room. I thank you for joining me on this lovely Tuesday afternoon. You can drop something in the inbox at inthelabroom@gmail.com. I'm on Facebook. Like me on Facebook at In the Lab Room. I'm on Twitter at In the Lab Room. And that's the Twitter handle. And I thank you for joining me today. I ask that you come back tomorrow when we have a little bit of fun with the NFL's Most Wanted. And we do our Soul Survivor segment as well tomorrow. So come back tomorrow. Get some more of In the Lab Room. I thank you for joining me. You have a good one. Same time, same place. I'm out. Enjoy the rest of your day.